Gordana, thank you so much for joining me on the Uplifting Content podcast today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm fabulous. And I just have to say, just the few minutes we've just spoken before we got going on this, you've just got such a beautiful, calming, loving, warm energy. I feel really good. So thank you for that.
Great. That was my aim. I love this. You have a bubbly energy too. Yeah.
Thank you. So my first question that I always ask guests is just to give the audience some context and just to learn a bit more about you. Could you share a bit about the work that you do and how you got to where you are today, please?
Well, that is a very tough question because everything in my life happens with a synchronicity, which I only can see when I look back at it. So, what I can see when I look back in my life is that I've always been a thinker. Even as a small child, I was a thinker. I could literally ponder upon how come I can see the stars when I close my eyes, and then realizing that, maybe it's because my imagination is made of the same stuff as the universe. Wow. But I couldn't share this with anyone because my parents were not interested in that. And I was born into a family where girls were not supposed to think that kind of thoughts. I was supposed to be in the kitchen, make food, and prepare myself to be a beautiful wife. And that was not what was going on in my head. I literally tormented my teachers with these kind of questions. I could ask, for instance, if the universe is infinite, then where is its center? And they go, oh, like that. And then I would say, if we're all one, then how come you're here and I'm there, or you're there and I'm here? Or I could ask them that kind of questions, and they couldn't give me any answers. For instance, I would wonder, how come I can see your feelings, but I can't hear your thoughts? And they would go, well, I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, that's a really good one. So I learned the skill to patiently wait for the answers. And they always came, either through some kind of synchronicity in my life where they popped up and I could read about them, or someone said something about it and I realized it. Or if I just waited enough, they would come from within. So that was how my childhood was. I was lonely and yet preoccupied in my mind with these kind of thoughts. And then I think that I was 17 when I had a car accident, and I realized that my body is not all that is. I am so much greater than my body. I am not my fear. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am something much bigger than this. I realized that there is a soul. There's something invisible driving me in this reality. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it was there, because when you look death in the eyes and you feel like it's okay, I'm not afraid, when you're 17, you realize that there is something much bigger than you driving you through this. So I was 19, I met my husband, and that was a miracle for me because he was such a beautiful soul and he was my soulmate. He literally showed me that I was not here to find my soul. I was here to allow my soul to explore the physicality of this reality, to taste food, to drink water and enjoy it, to watch the clouds, to smell the grass, the physical things of this reality. This is what my soul was supposed to do here.
How did you meet? And that must have been a relief for you to meet someone that was on such the same level as you, I'm sure.
I mean, you won't believe this because people say that's not possible. You can't do it that way. I saw him in the doorway. He was standing in the doorway and I saw him with the back of my eye. And I went inside of me, there he is. It was like I met him again. We were lost and then we met again. That's how it felt. And literally from that moment on, we have been spending every single minute together. It's amazing. That's why I call it a miracle, because it feels like a miracle. It feels like meeting your other half. And I know that we're not supposed to talk about that because we are all whole, and that's the truth. But when you meet someone that fits you so well, your universe expands because you get another perspective on it, and it becomes so much bigger. And I was only 19 when I met him. So my life expanded in all directions. I
Mm.
started studying at that age. I started studying art history and communication and psychology. And that felt fantastic because finally I would get all the answers I wanted. And it was good for a couple of years. I got my master's degree in this. And yet I felt like I slipped away from myself, like I lost
Mm.
myself in that process because I was trying to fit into the academic world and I was trying to find myself in the reality where I was. And that's a period of time, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I lost myself. So when I look back at it, I don't recognize myself when I'm 25, but I do recognize myself when I look at myself as an 11-year-old. I see who I am there, but I
So
can't see who I am.
would you
Yeah.
say that by going to school and things like that, you were kind of starting to conform and sort of live a
Yes.
life that didn't feel true to you? I was going to say, how was that being in school where you've got all of these,
Mm.
what's the word? These big ideas and visions and
Yes.
connecting and all these things. And then school is very much regimented. This is how you think. This is the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, it was utterly restraining. I felt
Mm.
myself like I was reading about beauty and art and psychology and all these wonderful things. And yet I felt like I was restrained into a box which was labeled academia. I
Yeah.
had to express myself in a specific way. I had to be in a specific way. I even dressed in a specific way because
Mm.
there are so many rules on how you do these things. And it felt really restraining. I pushed through and I got my master's degree. I did this brilliantly, by the way, because everything I touch I try to do brilliantly. So
You
even
always do your
that,
best.
yes, I always do my best and I did this brilliantly, but I felt not happy from
Yeah.
within. I felt very, very restrained and didn't know what I was supposed to do with whatever it was that I learned
Mm-hmm.
because I was learning things, memorizing things. And when you have to memorize things, well then they're not close to you. They're not close
No.
to your soul. I remember doing so many notes and trying to remember everything and my husband asked me, "Why are you doing this? Why are you writing so many notes? Do you love what you do?" And that was the key question.
Mm.
I went, "No, I actually don't. I love art, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't love this.
Right.
There's some there it's in they're not compatible what I
So,
love and what I'm doing." Yeah.
yeah, because he's saying like, why are you doing? Why are you doing these notes? Because you're trying to get it right, right?
Yes.
And then with
Yes.
art and things like that, there isn't right. It's just your truth and expression and
Yes.
creativity, and it's not just like
Yes.
must get all the
Yeah.
answers the way
Yeah.
that they want me to answer them. That takes away
Yeah.
from the whole expression of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's about answering a question in a way that they want you to answer. It's
yeah,
not about answering a question that comes from within. I found myself really enjoying writing the essays
mm-hmm.
because we wrote a lot of essays while studying art and I loved that, but I really resented all the other parts where I had to memorize the
Yeah,
year and all the stuff that had to do with time and who was the painter and all that kind of stuff. It felt very, very awkward to me.
yeah,
So I didn't enjoy that part, but I enjoyed the other creative part. And then another miracle occurred in my life, and that miracle changed very much. I was 31 and I gave birth to a son. The second I looked into his eyes, I realized that I do not need to teach him anything. He has everything he needs. I need
mm,
to learn how to become more who I truly am
mm,
because I saw my authentic self when I looked into his eyes. I literally saw my authentic self when I looked into his eyes. And I thought, if I am not my authentic self all the time, then he will not be allowed to be that. I will
yeah,
stop him from being that. So I made a promise without even thinking about it. I made a promise to myself that from now on, there is no fitting in, there's no adapting myself. I am
yeah.
going to be myself. who I am from within, seeking the authentic me by following my excitement and my desires in this reality, regardless of what the society, history, people around me think. I will do this, and I have to do this, otherwise he won't be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And this has put me on a path where I literally do this every single minute of my life.
Okay.
And I think 5 years ago, yes, something like that, 5 years ago, I started to express all these thoughts unfiltered out into the universe via social media. I started tweeting about my thoughts. And I didn't think that that would make any kind of difference out there, but it did. And today I'm communicating with hundreds of thousands of people every day. I do this all the time, 24/7. There are no pauses for me. And I put out reminders to people out there who are willing to listen of who we are and why we are here. I am reminding them of who they truly are so that they can stay on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And I have realized that I'm doing this all over the world. There is not one continent where I do not have followers, which is mind-boggling, because I had an idea when I started tweeting that, well, I thought that my ideal follower would be somebody maybe living in New York, maybe a single mom or something like that, in her 35, 40 years, something like that. And it turns out to be so wrong, because I have followers all over the world, all ages, every single gender there is out there. There is nothing in common except three things. The people who follow me and the people who read my book, they, for one, they know that they're the creators of their own reality. They take full responsibility for everything that is in their reality. And they are willing to go higher, broader in their consciousness to see the world from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things are the things that connect every single person that is reading my thoughts and buying my book and talking about the same things as I do. These are the connectors. There is no other demographic data I can give you except this. This is the red thread connecting all of them. And it has become, I mean, I am literally living my dream right now. I love what I do. I love the connection to all the people. I love the response from them. And I love knowing that I am making a difference on such a scale. I did not think that I would do that the first time I tweeted.
Yeah.
And here I am doing this on all social media platforms that I have.
I'm glad you are. It's beautiful.
Of course, a lot of things come when I sit in silence, when I find the stillness from within and just observe the movement around me. I'm just an observer in that, and I choose what I want to observe. But I think that the most answers come to me when I have an obstacle or a problem that I need to solve, and I get agitated or I get frustrated or I talk before I think. And that's when most of these things come to me. I stop and I give myself the time to stop and think. And in that short moment before I speak again, that's where everything comes to me. That's where I find myself and who I truly am. I connect to that in that moment. That has become more and more. I mean, now for the last 2 or 3 years, it has become more frequent with me. It has become a habit to stop myself and wait and then act on something. It's
pause.
To stop the reaction. When I stop a reaction, which it feels like an urge to do, and I stop that reaction, that is where the thoughts come to me. That's the gap where things come to me. And it's amazing, because you think the most thoughts would come when you're in a yoga position or having a wonderful meditation, and that is not the truth with me. I find them in the most stormy events, so to speak.
I found myself very tired and frustrated yesterday. I had a bit of a busy day and had a lot of things to do. It was like 10, 11. I still had a ton of things to do. and I was getting very irritated and like messaging someone on my team, and I could just tell. And I was just like, wait a second, you're tired and you're being grouchy. This is not the way to communicate with somebody. Like, take it back, calm. It's going to come through with your work if you're going to be putting out this energy. And had to have that check in. So that's a great tip. I think if we can have the consciousness enough to check in those times and then listen to what answers arise.
Well, there is this, when you start tapping into that stillness, which you just described, the stillness told you, wait. And you just waited. It's that stillness, because we all have voices that speak to us. There is this critic that tells us, do this, do that, this is not. And then there's the victim saying, oh, it's such a bad thing that happened to you right now. So, but these are the voices. You're the one listening. When you tap into the one listening, you can say, not this voice, that voice. This is what I want. When you do this habitually, you know that you're the driver, you're the listener to the voices. So you can stop and you can say no. Just knowing that, it doesn't take more than 100 of a second, but you do it. And it feels like an eternity when you start doing it, because it literally buys you time in a way.
Yeah.
It doesn't push you into something that will chop time away, and worry is the result of all that afterwards. But if you tap into that stillness, you give yourself time, and it releases something that gives you more time, and you can enjoy it afterwards. And it all happens in that single little 100 of a second every single day, when you feel agitated or when you feel that you need to do something, an action or reaction. It's more of a reaction. So it's in the reaction. Turning a reaction into an action is where the wisdom comes in. I think that's where the wisdom creeps in and literally tells you what to do. And you just gave me an example of that, which is, that's the only tip I can give people. People want to know, tell me, how do I tap into this? By breathing in and breathing out. It's this as simple as that, breathing in and breathing out, and then being brutally honest with oneself. You have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you slide into the victim, or you slide into the critic, or it just smoothly slides you away from yourself.
So the book is Know the Truth. And what is the kind of, you said in the tweets and the stuff that you share on social media, they're reminders to have people sort of come back to themselves and know their truth. What does that mean for someone that might not kind of be much in the spiritual world? How do you know yourself? What is the truth about yourself? Like, what is it? That's living authentically with who you want to be, how you feel, showing up, communicating honestly. Is that it?
Well, it is being. Well, there is one criteria. You have to understand that everything you do in this reality has to pass a filter. You have to ask yourself, is what I am doing loving? Where is the love in what I'm doing here? When you can ask yourself that question, you will always be acting from your authentic self. Otherwise, you will be acting from the ego, and that can be anything in this world but love. So asking yourself the question, I usually do that. Is there love in this? How can I find the love in this? What is the brightest side of this? Where can I find the lightness in this? And then I'm looking for it. It doesn't mean that I will find happy things all the time. What it means is, if I look at something that is black and I find a gray area, well, the gray area is what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to focus on the blackness. And that means that it can be something sad or something not so good, but it's better than the entire blackness. So just being connected to looking for the brightest side of whatever it is you're looking at, and asking yourself, am I acting from love or fear? If you're acting from fear, you're not acting from your authentic self. You're acting from ego. If you're acting from love, or compassion or understanding or whatever it is that is under the frequency of love, you will always be guided to act on your authentic self. And that's the simplest way for me to say, if you want to be your authentic self, you need to go and ask yourself, is there love in this? Also, the way I see it, and this is maybe a more of a spiritual way of looking at it, but I am all that is exploring the physical reality through Gordana Biernat's desires and wishes in this reality. So I need to be very, very attuned into my desires. What is it that I want in this reality? What do I love to do in this reality? And being very, very honest with oneself. Well, I love to watch the clouds. Well, that's who I am. That is a mirror back to me of who I authentically am. So everything that you love in this reality is a mirror of what it is you want in this reality. Everything that you do not like in this reality is a mirror of the fear that you have within you, that each and every one of us has some kind of fear, and we're all co-creating this reality together. So we are looking at our own fears or what we love in this reality. So following your excitement and always looking for the brightest side will always guide you to be your authentic self. We put so much pressure on ourselves when we are in our early 20s, 30s, even 40s, to know what it is we are supposed to do in this reality. You're supposed to follow your excitement in every single now moment and explore the physicality of this reality. That's what you're supposed to do. We're always trying to figure out, what's my next step? Pushing into the future. And I think that when we are pushing, when we are planning, when we are anticipating the future all the time, well, then we are living in the future. And you don't know what the future is. So you're literally living in unknown territory. That will make you anxious and give you fear because you're not focused in the now moment. So focusing in the now moment and following your excitement will always lead you in the right direction in the future, so you don't have to worry about the future.
So I get torn between, because I have this whole thing about having an idea of what you want and then sort of, I guess it's sort of letting it unfold. I always go between this idea of like not being strict in planning. Sorry, just because I'm hearing what you're saying, and there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, but sometimes it's good to plan for the future and like set aside money for retirement and like know what you want to do. But I don't think you're saying don't do those things. It's sort of more having an idea of where you're going, not being so regimented on all of that, so that you're not paying attention to any of the signs or what you're getting along the way, just being tunnel focused and forcing something rather than being open to what unfolds. That's kind of more,
because what I mean is, if you have a goal and you want to go from point A to point B the fastest way, well, then life will feel like you're sitting on a train and you do not see any shape or form. And that's why you lose time and you find yourself in your 40s and you don't know what you're doing. What I mean is, plan, say what you want, but allow the path to be a little bit slower, to stop and see, oh, excitement there, oh, excitement here, and enjoy. I promise you, you will reach your goal because you have a goal. You have to have a goal, otherwise you don't know where you're going. But to allow that path to become more enjoyable, not to chase it, to walk it in a more comfortable pace. That's what I'm saying. Of course, we need to plan. Everybody needs to plan. Otherwise, you're lost. But to follow your excitement while you have this plan for your future, and trust that, okay, this is deviating a little bit away from my goal, but maybe it will take you faster to your goal. You don't know that unless you try. So what I mean is to lighten up a bit and try more things, not to be so, I have to do this by 30 and then I have to do this by 40. This is, it's
pressure.
It doesn't matter how old you are. It literally doesn't. I see a trend when I look at people. let's say when I was a child, someone who was 40 felt like, oh my God, very old. And today, when I look at people who are 40, they don't look like 40. They're like
No.
20 or something. It feels like we have done something with time where more and more people understand that there are no rules how you look or what you do and what age you are. There's no correlation between
Yeah.
those things.
So we don't need to live in those boxes of, yeah, I have to have this by this age. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know where you're about, if you've had any training, if there were any spiritual teachers that you've had, if there's been certain books that have, I mean, I'm sure you read a good amount. Where is this kind of wisdom from you come from? Obviously, there's the tuning in to what you've received. Any other ways in which you've grown?
I mean, there are a lot of people doing what I'm doing, and of course, I'm inspired by a lot of people out there. I remember reading Seth Speaks. Uh, it was mind blowing
Seth
when I did.
Speaks, you said?
Seth Speaks, yes.
Okay, I'm writing
And
that down.
this is a channeled book, so I remember reading it and holding my breath because I was so scared of channeled work at that time. It was
Wow.
maybe 10 years ago or something like that. And then I read the Law of One,
Mm-hmm.
also a channel book, very complicated to read, but I read it in one breath because I really, really, it resonated with how I thought about this reality. And I remember reading those books and feeling empowered by it because they just validated every single thought I had about this reality and couldn't find it in any literature out there. Also,
Mm.
I do love esoteric books about metaphysics. I love reading about that. So I read a lot of old books from the 1910, 20. I enjoy these kind of things because I feel like they're more free in their way of thinking. They can mix science and spirituality in a way which I feel is liberating. And that's why I love
Mm.
reading it. But truly, to be honest with you, most of these things that I write about come from within. I have to
Mm.
allow them to come from within. They have to be processed through me and then out in this reality.
Mm.
And it's the processing through me that I find very, very enjoyable. So I do it all the time. Most of the things literally come from sitting here and pondering upon reality by myself.
I love it. And then sharing it, which is, and it's
Yes,
resonating.
sharing it,
Brilliant.
that has become a very, very important part because I have been doing this, as I say, as long as I
Since
can
you were a
remember.
child, yeah.
Yes, but when I started sharing it, that is exactly the moment when it started to fulfill me. Otherwise, it was just something that I occupied my mind with. And now it is fulfilling me because it's coming back and it's coming back with love from others that
Yes.
feel the same thing. And
Yes.
that is invigorating, really, truly invigorating. So it's the loop back that made me addicted to this
Yeah,
and why
yeah, it
I'm
is.
doing this.
It
Yes.
really is. Just to get that, just to know that it makes an impact, just I can get a message from time to time or just a comment from somebody if I haven't seen them for a while, that seeing my posts have uplifted them in some way or made them laugh or made them smile. Because
Mm.
when you're just putting stuff out, you don't always know, but it's when it comes back, you're like, oh, it's that
Mm.
fuel. It's a cycle.
Yes,
Yeah.
and this is the physical response in that field because
Mm,
I know that whatever I think about others is connected to them. We are all one
mm,
and we are all connected. So just because I don't see it or I sense it with my five senses does not mean that it has no impact. And I know this, but it's beautiful when you see the proof of that impact. And the proof is always when someone smiles back at you and says, "Thank you so much for doing this for me." So,
mm.
but everything we do in this reality has an impact somewhere because we are connected through the quantum field or the universe or the source or whatever we want to call it. We are connected. There is no end to me. and beginning to you. I don't know where I end and you begin. It's impossible. If I look at it from a quantum physics perspective, you don't have any endings, and neither do I, because we are connected by this field. And that is the beauty of it all, understanding that. And I mean, everything in this reality is energy. So the only difference between you and me is the frequency of that energy, because we're both energy. So I'm literally speaking to myself when I'm speaking to you, only a mirror of myself, and you're speaking to me and I'm a mirror of you. And that's really beautiful when I think about it. We're all doing this. And I think that if we all had an aha moment and realized this, everything would change, because we would see our true nature. We would see the potential, because you are connected to the quantum field with your thoughts and with your emotions and your beliefs. And the quantum field is reacting to them. It is giving you mirrors back on what you believe is true. And your beliefs are subconscious, so you're not always aware of them. And the universe is stable. It is giving you the pictures back all the time. So it is always mirroring something to you. That is why I find my most illuminating moments when it's mirroring back something I do not understand. Because I know I've created it, but there is a subconscious belief that is mirrored back to me, and I need to take care of it. I need to look at it, and I need to stop, find my stillness, and look at it. So that's the beauty of this reality, and the oneness that we're creating in this reality.
Wow. Can you share with us a little bit about your book, Know the Truth?
I'm here it is.
Beautiful.
I'm literally, this is an extension of who I am. I am really proud of this book, and I feel like even when I am not around, people will still be able to read my thoughts, and I know that those thoughts will help them find themselves. So for me, it was the most beautiful thing to do, to write the book. I didn't feel like that when I started writing it, because I was so scared of opening up and showing myself. And I think that my academic background made me more scared, because it gave me an idea of that I needed to write the book in a specific way. And when I stopped thinking that way, and when I started thinking that I need to write this book the way I want to write it, not the way I want others to read it, I need to write it the way I want to write it. That's when it became an extension of who I am. And I didn't know that I was writing a book, because I started with the tweets. So I tweeted out my thoughts. And one morning my husband came, and he had half a page of written text, and he gave it to me. And I started reading the text, and I went, well, I wrote this, but when did I write this? Because I couldn't remember writing that big part of a text. And he said, well, here are 6 tweets which I combined, and there's weeks between those tweets.
But they all
and
make
when I
sense
read
as a
it,
message.
yes,
Wow.
it sounded like I read it in one breath. And that's when it hit me. I knew, I thought to myself, oh my God, my book is already out there. All I need to do
You've been writing it for like 3-4 years.
Yes, I just bring it back in. And that's what I did. I brought it back in, and then of course, there's much more writing in the book than there is but it was the skeleton of the book. It was the framework of the book, and I could just pour myself into it. And it was a very, very easy process. And then Hay House contacted me and asked, do you have a book? And I said, yes. And the book was published. It was such an easy thing. It was like a very easy birth. Very easy to do for me. So I'm really proud of it, and I feel like, oh, it's my baby. But now I'm literally thinking about another one. So I have ideas of the next book, trying to jot down ideas now. That's the process.
I'm sure that will come to fruition effortlessly. Well, with a bit of work, but it's gonna, it will happen when I'm sure it's supposed to happen. How did you come to being one of Oprah's sort of soul teachers, one of her 100 soul teachers?
That's also a beautiful story, because Oprah found me through Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sherry Salata, who was the president of OWN at that time, followed me for some time. And I didn't know that she was following me on Twitter. So she was checking me out, checking what I do. And then one morning, I think I found a DM which said, if you're up to it, let's dream a little. That was all it said.
Mm.
And a few months later, I was at brunch with Oprah and a lot of great people. I mean, Gary Zukov, Tony Robbins, Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Gabrielle Bernstein. All of these people were in the SuperSoul 100 list. And I felt like I'd been given the Nobel Prize in self-help. That's how it felt for me. It was a total validation of what I was doing and still am. So I feel like before I was whispering and now I have a megaphone. That's the difference.
Amazing.
But I'm still doing exactly the same thing. I haven't changed anything. I do the same thing.
You're just
But it
able to
feels like,
reach more people.
yes, I have a bigger voice, and it's allowed me to expand myself in a much greater way. But it was beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing. So doing what you love will always lead you right. I promise.
Yes. You had mentioned before that there's lessons in the book, was it? From like 1 to 200? Can we
Yes,
do
I
that
want
where
you to.
I take it? Can you
Yes,
explain that?
yes, I want you to think about an obstacle or something that you need to work on in your life. And then you think about a number from 1 to 231.
185.
185. Let's see what's in there for you. And you will get your synchronistically perfect message from my book right now. 185. Here it is. Let's see now. I have to put my glasses on. Here we go. When reality presents you with low frequency situations, let's do that again. When reality presents you with low frequency situations, relationships, events, and things, it is actually reminding you that you need to heighten your frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So I can read the rest here. There's a little bit more which I can read for you. It is a reminder that it is time to start redefining your beliefs and reimagining yourself again. What your reality is telling you is that you need to take care of your frequency by embracing your desires, passions, dreams, and wishes. How you feel is important because emotions affect your frequency, and your frequency determines your reality.
That's fantastic. So my thing that I was thinking about was relationship stuff. I was recently ended things with a lovely guy that I was dating just because it wasn't really a good, he's such a wonderful person, but we're just not each other's person. And it's kind of made me just be like, ugh, I just want to be done with dating. I'm like tired of like putting energy out there and trying to look for people, and it's just also disappointing. And I like literally has been my mindset for like the last week or so. And so this is just very interesting because I'm like, yeah, that's probably not the frequency that I should be putting out, is it?
No, it's
and it's not really
it's,
what I want to be, not have that companionship with somebody in that connection. So that was pretty on point.
Yeah. You know, something when you say things like that, it becomes a negative mantra. It's like a negative prayer, which means that the universe is listening. So it gives you more of that because you are actually asking for it.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, it is the victim speaking.
Yeah,
so you're not connected to the stillness. It is
totally.
The victim speaking. So you can say, shut up to the victim. And then you go, what do I really want? Well, what you want is to find a relationship which will bring you the energy that you want, which will make you feel happy. So that's what you're supposed to focus on. You're supposed to focus on feeling happy and being in that relationship, not saying, I will never ever date anyone, because you're plunging down into the negative frequency. It's just a reminder that you are too low. You need to go higher.
Yes.
You're too low. Every time you feel that pain or that victim starting to speak, it's a reminder that says, too low, go higher.
Yeah.
Find things that will heighten your frequency, whatever that is. I mean, that can be anything. It doesn't have to be a new partner. It can be something else. It can be whatever you like to do, you start doing that because you need to heighten your frequency. Oh, well, it was on point. That's great.
I approve of this book.
Yay!
It works.
I'm so glad.
This has been lovely. I like to wrap up these episodes by asking if you have a call to action or a thing or an exercise to leave the listeners with. So yeah, what would that be?
Yeah. Well, I would love to end this call with a very, very short, a micro meditation, which you can do anytime you want, when you feel that you're slipping away from who you truly are, when you need to remember or remind yourself of who you truly are. So what I want us to do is to close our eyes and then breathe in and breathe out. And repeat after me. I am the light in the darkness.
I am the light in the darkness.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the courage in the fear.
I am the courage in the fear.
And breathe in and out. And that's the micro meditation. Bringing you back into your true self always. This is who we truly are.
That was delightful.
Yes. It's like a dessert.
Yes.
Delightful.
Yes. Oh, Gordana, thank you so much for this. I feel just rejuvenated and calm, and just, yeah, you've got such a beautiful presence. This is lovely. And I'm sure it will translate through visually or audibly, however people are receiving this episode. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have links to to your website and things like that. You have a program, don't you? Is it like a course that you have on your website that people can participate in, or is that your email sign up? I signed up for your email.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's my email sign up, and then there's the book also. So those are the two things.
Perfect. It was fabulous speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this very much.
My pleasure. Me too. And everyone, you will hear from me next week. Thank you so much. Bye.